going on? All right, let's get to it here. Sorry for the late start. Trying to finagle some things around. Been trading a lot pre-market and post lately, so it's getting things a little slow. I'm going to just go through this. This is something I use regularly just to see where we're at in the market. And I just want to point out and be a little obvious here. So I like looking at an hourly chart, and I like seeing how that hourly chart acts. I just find it very helpful. It just gives me a better sense of where we're at. I would even suggest that day traders look at hourly charts just to get a sense of where support and resistance are. Anyway, if I look at this, that 20, you can see how that 20 is just sitting right there. See how we keep breaking it over and over and over again? You see right here, I don't know if I do this. Let me see if this, I wonder if this shows up on the chart. Let me see something. Oh, that'll show up there. Let me see something here. I have this new drawing tool. Now it doesn't show up. That's exhausting. I wonder why it doesn't show up. Play with that later, I guess. Anyway, we use this drawing tool. If I look at that cloud, see how the cloud turned right here? It goes from purple to green. That's like my yellow flash. Like, hey, have your antenna up. And then my antenna gets up, and then I start turning here. And then I can't get above that 20, right? And you can see how we're struggling with it right there. These are signs of a pullback. I was trying to explain this last night. Must have done a really poor job of it because people kept telling me how bullish my video, last night's video was. I didn't want to come off bullish. I'm trying to explain different time frames, but let me explain this. To me, if I break below, and I'll just draw it, you should be able to see it, but that 45.80 level, you have a problem. All right. You have a problem. And that would mean that you have a control bar, and that would be your control bar. And that kind of makes sense that would be the control bar, because if you take that control bar and you come all the way across with it, and this is what I do with my free time, but if you come across with that bar, look at where it sits. Bonk, 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 right? I mean, you're bonking all over the place. So nobody wants that, right? So I'd watch this. I'd watch how we responded here. You know, I would be careful. You had a flag, and this is the other thing I always pay attention. Like, here's your flag. Then you hit that higher high on the flag, and then what do? Then you reject. Then you try to look like you're going to push out of this bear flag because you reject here, right? And what does it do? Pulls the flim flam. I would just be careful. We can go through the numbers. We're due for some kind of pullback. I'm not saying that we're going to fall out of bed, but there's some kind of pullback out there. And so my antenna would just be up just a little bit. I don't know where that pullback is going to be, but if I had to guess, you would think it'd be in tech. Now, we'll see how that goes. I mean, you have some names that are basically telling me the exact opposite, but that's how I would view the ES right now. And that they're the levels I would watch. You can shoot them if you want. Hold on 1 second. Let's get to this right here. Now, if I look at the Nasdaq and I look at this on the hourly, and again, I do look at this way. Well, what's that telling me? Right? What can we see here on the hourly? Well, I'm flipping right here. So I probably want to be a little more cautious on the short term. There's a yellow flag. Now I can't get above that 20 on the hourly. All right. And so now what am I doing? I'm forming pendants, running into resistance, and I'm breaking down. You know, for those that are in the community, you should kind of recognize this pattern right there, right? We talk about these patterns all the time. And now you're up, trying to rally, can't, and now what? Rejection. So very crystal clear here, guys. I'd be watching that 5 a.m. level. And if I break that, you're probably heading down something like this, 15.7 down to here. And what that would mean to me is that we go through some kind of correction. And that wouldn't be insane to actually not go up 1% every day. You know, understand, what is there, 280 trading days, something like that? You go up 1% every single day, you're up 280% on the year. It doesn't work that way. You also don't have the Fed pumping 1.7 trillion in the market. So the way that you traded 2 years ago when everyone thought they were super smart was just really the Fed pumping money into the system. That's why I always say that, does your system work now? Because if it worked in 2020, 21, that's great, but your system needs 1.7 trillion pumped into the market. So just keep that in mind. Now, if you look at these levels and you see how we're acting in here, this is definitely something that I would pay attention to. $15,728. I pay real close attention to these levels. I pay attention to how we're rolling there. Hope that's helpful. Now, let's get into some names here. I'm going to get rid of these private clouds. Boop. And let's get into some names. Let's do a little Netflix. So this is exactly what I was talking about, and we've been talking about it in the private community. We've also been talking about it in these videos. I don't see how they were going to be able to answer the strike question. And I would think that they would have been smarter than they were last night. I'm just going to clean all this off and start over. I would have thought they would have been smarter than the way they handled it when you listen to the call. Coming out and your statements, well, this is not the outcome we wanted. Well, no, you're kidding, right? You didn't want your workers to stop working. I'm shocked. I'm shocked by that. So it was not well planned out at all. And it was kind of shocking that a multi-billion-dollar company has that kind of statement. And that would be something that I would be really concerned about, that they put that little thought into it, which to me, if you put that little thought into something, it means you're just not prepared. So I don't really think they're prepared. Now, what got me about this was, even after that call, we had these firms coming out and saying that they just don't like them. They just didn't raise the target price. They weren't crazy about the quarter. Let's clone these and see if they sit anywhere. Now, pretty much here on the top end of that, aren't we? So I think that's something to think about. To me, this is one big bear pendant, and you're cracking. So I'd watch that real careful. I'd be really careful here. So, these things can always bounce, guys, but this was not a great call. They missed on revenue. They got rid of the cheapest payment plans in the US and UK, and their content is now on hold. It's a problem. To build out their pipeline, their content's on hold. So it's a problem, and it's something they have to think about. It really is. And I would see how this plays itself out, but this is not something, to me, I'd watch this area very, very closely right here. To me, I'd be real careful here. So it's not like you had great earnings last night where they knocked the cover off the ball, right? We talked about this on here. Let me just pop that this way. I'd rather do it this way. Yep. And then drop this to a 1, and let's get rid of this. And let's put this in and go reset. Good. You can see exactly how we acted here. It's not great. So I'd watch this. I'd be very careful of this. That's just a 9, so you can see what's going on. Now, if you look at Tesla, the best thing about Tesla is that everybody should be out understanding how great NVIDIA is. But, you got right to that VWAP you couldn't hold. I actually was long here, and I sold into that when we broke right here. I would suggest that if you're going to trade after hours, that you consider watching the day's VWAP. Forget anchored VWAP. Just whatever VWAP was for the day, just put it on your chart and watch how you act. It will tell you if people that bought during the day are getting in or out of a trade, right? This was absolutely glaring, should be glaring to everybody. All right. So what you're doing is you're just using VWAP and saying, okay, well, what does VWAP tell you? What VWAP gives you the average price. Well, if you can't get over the average price, there's only one reason, because the people that own the average price are selling. See, when you start understanding what this stuff actually is, you can start making actual decisions based upon it, right? It's not magic. It's not a magical line. It's charting human behavior. Anyway, see where you're at with these levels? And you can kind of see how you're bouncing around in here, and then that was it. And then you just start using the low of the day as another level, and you start seeing how you do there. Well, you didn't do too good, did you? Tries to rally, breaks, rally back through it, can't. That was it. And then it was toast. Breaks the low, flushes out the right. That's where all the algos were. Flushed them out. No, and that's it. And then you get Elon talking about the stock price is too high and, you know, everything else. And we're going to license our technology and who knows, you know, 1,000 reasons why it went down. The number one reason to me why it went down is free cash flow was half of what people were expecting. I mean, I wouldn't read too much into it past that. If free cash flow wasn't half, probably wouldn't have gone down the way that it did. But here we are. So far, just to recap, I don't see great earnings coming out of Netflix. I don't see great earnings coming out of Tesla. I have a Nasdaq to me that looks like I'm going to roll, and I'm having trouble with the areas that I just already drew for you, right? I'm already having trouble with those areas. I'm having trouble with the ES. So, I mean, to be clear, you know, in last night's video, I'm kind of surprised, but, you know, I got a lot of people saying, well, the title's bearish, but you're bullish. I know I'm not going to please everybody, but it kind of just made me laugh a little bit. Yeah, I think we're due for a pullback. I've been saying this for a period of time. I think we're getting closer and closer to that. I say that, and then we start seeing rotation. Now, I'm wondering if we're going to have rotational pullbacks versus just straight index pullbacks. And there's a big difference. And one of the things that we're seeing is that rotational pullback thought process might be more apropos. I guess you don't get to use that word too much. So there it is. So, and why is that? Because you're breaking out of these other sectors. These other sectors are breaking out. Like industrials are breaking out. Caterpillar's breaking out. John Deere's breaking out. Why? Well, the dollar's dropping. Our goods, our cost in goods are easier to buy globally when the dollar drops. Simple enough, right? US dollar, it's easier to buy our goods. Okay. So you have that sector. And then everyone's come to the conclusion that financials, here's your DTL on the weekly. Everyone's coming to the conclusion that the DTL, that DTL right here, that all banks are not going to zero. So that's like an epiphany for everybody this week. And now you're starting to see the upgrades. Goldman, $80 target on Schwab. And so you're starting to see these start to come out. Whether or not that, you know, lifts today, I'd watch that 56. Everyone, if you've been following for some time, you know, we're in this NYCB. I guess we're up about 50% in it at this point. And you're starting to just see these names really start to kick in. And I don't see any reason to think that's going to change. So are we seeing rotation? Are we going to drop? Right? Is the whole market going to come in, or are we going to rotate? I'm starting to get in the camp that we're just going to constantly rotate. That's kind of where my head's going right now, which is good. It would mean that the pullbacks that we have in the market are actually less if we rotate. And it seems to me that rotation is what's on the agenda right now. That's what it appears to me. Now, if I look at this and you start seeing names like CCI blowing up today, I mean, all these names, look, they're all going to come in. I own this one. They're going to bounce around. They're not going to go straight up, guys, especially, you know, with what they're dealing with. But I think the bottom's in. And I think the bottom's in with this too. I mean, I think that the bottom's in with regionals. This gets pretty obvious, guys. I think it does. When you start looking at it and go, you know, left shoulder. Let's just put this here. Left shoulder, head, right shoulder, right? Come on. Right shoulder. Man, I got two different drawing tools. Whenever I use this one, I forget which way the arrows go. I don't know how that gets any clearer. So all these regionals that are coming out, RF, what was it? RF, regional financials. I mean, they're all coming out of that, and they all have it. So the one that's still at risk, I think, is this PACW. I mean, they didn't really reinstate their dividend yet, did they? And now you're still going to raise rates probably in July. What's that going to do to the stock? I'm not saying you're not going to lose another bank. You still could, but it doesn't really seem to matter, does it? The band keeps playing. So I just don't see this huge crisis. I mean, you look at JP Morgan, what did they do? Look at Goldman Sachs the other day. What did they do? I think it's pretty clear what's going on there. And as far as rotation, let me just get into this and a couple of names, and then I'll take some questions. But you start looking at like Bitcoin. Well, we didn't really break down. We just kind of stopped. Now, all those names are rotating back up, right? They all pulled back the key levels. If I put these moving averages in, I got right to my 12. I use a 12, a 22, and a 55. You should use whatever you're comfortable with. Riot, very similar pattern, same superheated over and over, MSTR. I mean, it's one big trade, guys. It's one big trade. Names that I am watching today, and I'll give you some ideas that I'm watching. The CVNA, I don't know, and we're going to see how this plays out, but I don't know how people are going to look at this name. And I'm not saying that it's not overly extended. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm having a hard time trying to understand what the short thesis is anymore, unless they're just outright lying, if that's what we're going with at this point, right? They came out, they raised guidance, okay? They pre-announced guidance ahead of time. And I just want to point this out so people get this, okay? They were supposed to come out with earnings sometime in a couple weeks, right? Their earnings were so good that they pre-announced. And when you pre-announce, you're not taking into account the earnings cycle that you didn't. You're taking all that out, right? So you're not counting all that because you don't know what it's going to be. So you're counting from when you stop, right? Okay. So just think about that for a minute. So you stopped here, right? May. So that's going to give you that cycle, right? That 3-month cycle. You don't even have a full 3-month cycle here. And they stopped and said, this is what we're doing. By the way, this is where we are on earnings. This is where we are on revenue. And oh, by the way, we're going to issue millions and millions of shares of stock to Apollo to pay our debt off. Well, I mean, Apollo's not taking equity if they think that they're getting their equity at the high, right? They're just not doing that. So something to think about. All right. And I'm not saying that you're going to go up every single day. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that when you start putting the pieces together, I think that this becomes very difficult to knock down, in my opinion. At this point, I just don't see what your bear thesis is, unless they're going to do another secondary today, or what's going to get it down besides the fact that it's higher? Well, that's the whole market. Well, maybe it comes down because the whole market comes down. But the bear thesis is absolute toast. This is one we're doing in the room. We're up about $3 in it already. And I mean, look at that flag. It's really hard to not like this. Really hard. And, the one thing I would say about Rivian that you should be paying attention to, in my opinion, was the fact that, let me just drop this desk down. In my opinion, I think is really important. We didn't get a lot of like, oh, we're going to create thousands and thousands of the Cybertruck. We didn't really get that talk yesterday. So where's Rivian's competition? I don't see it. I don't. All right. I'm sure I got a bunch of questions. Let's get to it. I didn't even get through as much as I wanted to, but gapped up yesterday, big green candle. Let's take a look. LMND. Yeah, we ahead of earnings too. That's nice. Your volume? Oh boy, you got a little volume. Wonder why it moved like that. I'll watch that today. That's interesting. I wonder why it moved like that. Let's see what's going on here. Let's see this for a second. All right, let's just keep going here. That's interesting. I like that LMND. XRT names RH, SNBR. So RH, to me, I don't think this gets any clearer. I mean, I really don't. Like, look, you can see the volume line increasing. I just don't know how this gets any better. I mean, as far as, hey, how are these stocks going to do? I think they're going to do exceptionally well, personally. If you go back and look at that at a year and you only look at 52 weeks, right? That's 52 weeks. How high off that base are you? You're not really, are you? That base is 340. You're really not that high. I mean, if you look at this as a year base, I mean, you're just starting. You're really just starting. So I think names like this have huge potential. I really do. I mean, I think that high end space has huge potential. I think there'll be pullbacks. This is one we bought. I do. I think there'll be pullbacks, but these are things that we have to watch and things that we have to pay attention to. But I do. I do think there'll be pullbacks. So I'm going to watch this today. Some of these things get overextended. I don't know why this is doing what this is doing. I mean, maybe everyone's buying a sleep number mattress. Maybe I'm missing something. I like the other chart better. I see the volume. I don't know enough about this company. I know Restoration Hardware. I know what they're selling their stuff for. I get it. I mean, I see that. It's huge volume. I like the Restoration Hardware chart better, but this is nice. It's hard not to like. They're both hard not to like. I think it's there. I think we're getting real close to a pullback. IHI and PAVE. Let's get into it. IHI. Yeah, I was watching all these names and then they never went anywhere. It's kind of disappointing. They never really had their moment, did they? They never really had their moment. I'm not crazy about them. They just never really got where I want them to get to. I don't have any volume. I wouldn't go near it. And the volume that I have, every time I start to pop the volume besides here, it's all red. So it's not something I'd be paying attention to, which is kind of odd considering what it is. You would think the infrastructure that would just continue to just grind. Maybe it does. Maybe it continues to grind. I don't know. I'm not a fan of it. I'm not, Jacob. What's up, Mats? RKLB Penn, thanks. Yeah, I mean, anything like this that has that kind of volume, where you're above average volume. All right, and now I've got this doji. Just watch the doji. I mean, that's all you have to do there. Like I would not overthink that at all. Just watch that and see how you act. I mean, that's all I would do. I would just watch that doji. I would not overact there. I would just see how that goes. Penn, I haven't really been paying attention to. They got a lot of play because they were online during the pandemic, and Portnoy was everywhere. So they got a ton of play because of that, and Barstool, and I mean, good for him. I mean, I think it's awesome, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know. They got a lot of work to do here, man. They got a lot of stuff to figure out, and I'm sure they will. I'm sure they'll figure it out, but it's not something that I would be rushing to get into. Tesla down, good earnings. I don't think Tesla's earnings were that great. Maybe Nikola squeezes. It could squeeze, Josh. You could use that as a mean. I would use a 20 as the mean. DG down 15%. Let's see. Yeah, that's just a disaster. I mean, I wouldn't go anywhere near that. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, I had the 20. What's up, Jung? Let's do QTRX. So something like this, yeah. If I don't have volume, I don't really get that interested. I'd also watch wicks like that. They bother me. Those kinds of wicks bother me because I want to see us push through. You have a lot of trouble installing VWeb. Really? It's a button. It's just a button. I mean, I got to find out where I get that button now. I'll tell you in a minute. I get it off of, here it is right there. That's all you have to do. Click on it. And then I click the star and it adds to this little thing up here. So, but dropping VWAP there is not that hard at all. You just drop it on in the middle of the day. Good to go. Shouldn't be that hard, Ginger. APP. I should probably do tutorials on TradingView. Then again, maybe I'm not the best one to do them. No, I wouldn't go near that. Where's your volume? I mean, like, I'm huge on volume, guys. If I don't have volume, I don't go near it. I think Marvel's misunderstood, and I think that you're going to – whoa, where'd that go? Okay, all right. I think Marvel's misunderstood. I do. I think Marvel's misunderstood, and you're starting to shape up here. I really do think that way, and I think this U is going to be an absolute monster. You know, I just trying to find a way in on a setup that makes sense to me. Like this day, kind of. Then we don't get the follow through, and then I have, you know, I just had weird thing after weird thing for me that just didn't work. You know, it tries to pop over, undercuts. Like, it's just time and time again, it's just not working for me. So, yeah. But it looks great and it acts great. I'd like more volume. I think it's probably, I should probably get a tattoo that says that. Yeah, it is kind of impressive that they have any cash flow. It was cut in half, but it is impressive, dude. The way that they're building out is insane. I don't know. I think we pull back, but I don't know that I'd be playing that. What's up, Jay? Cool dog. It's not my kind of trade right here. I'd rather pull back and then buy. But you could do very well with that, Ian. You could. I do think we're due. RNG, UA. So RNG, yeah, I mean, that is something that I'd watch. I would watch that. You're breaking through a lot of key levels. Here's that control bar. Here's where you're flipping, right? I like that. I think that could work. UA. I mean, you got the volume. People are looking for the next one. I think Under Armour's had its day in the sun. I do, but that could work. That's solid volume coming in. Airbnb looks great. That whole sector looks great. We have people trading bookings in the room. They're crushing it. And all I keep hearing about is how bad Airbnb is, and people with Airbnbs are suffering. And I don't know. Maybe they are. Maybe they're suffering, but the company's not, stock-wise. I mean, that's a huge demarcation line, guys. Let me just draw that so you see it. I mean, that's like a tale of two tapes, right? I mean, it really is. It really is. It's like a tale of two tapes. You know, for those people that love their little Darvis boxes, there you go. I mean, it doesn't get more obvious, does it? Right? I don't have a position. I get this. It makes sense to me. Please hit the like button. It helps greatly with the algorithm. And please share. Yeah, I think it is a little different right now. I mean, I don't know that I have to call them, you know, I don't know where they're buying the new kings. I don't know who the new kings are, but I don't know. I don't even want to be buying up here. Like, just relax a little bit. You have a long time. What's the hurry? I've thrown in the towel with this. I've gotten stopped out twice. I've tried twice on exhaustion patterns to pick this off. People, you know, I said I'm going to talk about losses. I'm actually going to do a whole video on losses and how to cut them sooner. And the more I put out there and you comment, the more I think I'm going to start doing like a live Q&A like once a month or something. I've been thinking about it, where I just take questions. I think it'd be helpful to people. I have to figure out how to work it though. But in regards to this, like I got stepped on twice. I've had enough. I obviously don't know what I'm doing when it comes to natural gas, so I'm staying away from it. It's not working. Like I'm going to jump, but I wanted to say this. There are times where I will just stop trading vehicles when it just does not work. It just, for whatever reason, I can't get in the flow of that vehicle. I'll just stop. I'll just walk away. I don't care how great the chart looks, what it looks like. I stopped trading silver a long time ago. I can't tell you how happy I am. So, it just doesn't work for me. I would think gas would go higher with what's going on in Russia, Ukraine. I would think going in the winter, gas would go higher. There I go thinking again, right? I mean, so I'd look at wheat, by the way. I got to jump, everybody. Trade to win. So, oh, let's see that right there. See, I gave my sign on. I gave my sign off, Darwin. Now you're going to throw that at me. No, I don't look as cool when I drop the mic. Anchored VWAP's right here. You click, see this little thing right here, little arrow or whatever it is, the little like line thingy. Just click that arrow, come all the way down, anchored VWAP. It's right there, right? Boop. Then you just boop, click it, goes everywhere. And I drop it up here. And to get this toolbar, anything that you click over here, that you hit these stars will appear up there. All right, that's our lesson for the day. All right, I'm out. See you, John.